panel discussion on the crucial role of CFOs in managing business crises and turnarounds, navigating uncertainty with agility and strategic leadership. Please join me in welcoming the moderator, Mr. Sanjay Patni, Associate Director and National Head, Institutional Sales at Mirae Asset Investment Managers, India Private Limited. Can we have a big round of applause for Mr. Patni? Mr. Patni manages institutional business verticals for India at Mirae Asset. In this capacity, he is entrusted upon to handle and enhance institutional business in India. Along with his team, he advises corporate clients, family offices, bank treasuries, retirement funds, and promoters, channel partners to take prudent steps to consider asset management product basket opportunities to invest in India and overseas market. With this, I would like to further introduce the panelist. Mr. Ajay Choudhary, Finance Director and Country CFO at Gestamp. Mr. Venugopal Rao, CEO at Autoline Industries Limited. Mr. Santosh Abbimane, CFO at Xpressbees. Mr. Suresh James Chelliah, CFO at Tata BlueScope Steel. Mr. Vijay Kabra, CFO at Nilons Enterprise Private Limited. Mr. Ajay Mahajan, CFO at Kelvion. Can we have a big round of applause for moderator and all our panelists? Over to you, Mr. Patni.
Yeah. Hello. Hello. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, that's the way it is. That should be. That's the way it is. I'm sure you had a good rabdi and whatever was there outside. I could see that. And I also tried that for sure. I don't think so. That should not get you energy for sure. Okay. So that's important. Okay. So my name is Sanjay Patni. Let me introduce myself. I take care of institutional business for Mirae Asset. I'm part of the organization and based at Mumbai. Maybe in the first half we did talk about a few things in my presentation, but I'll also mention that that's the time when you find when I was talking in the morning, markets were down. I don't know whether you noticed that. While we are talking now, markets are up. Okay. So I'm only saying that intraday, do not try to trade. Okay, I'm not saying that at all. Okay. Hold your market bets. Doesn't matter. If you remain in markets, finally you're going to make money. Can you read the topic here? Navigating uncertainty. Part of life. There is no doubt about it. Volatility will continue. That will remain in our life. If you remain at this level of markets, obviously it's going to remain there. So stay put in the market because you're going to pass through that process. And that's what I mentioned, keep walking in the morning in my presentation. Yep. So let me put some perspective to you here. Okay. And my favorite topic is always cricket. Okay. So I think let me take the chance again of mentioning that to you. When you find cricket, you'll find, I'll give you 3 incidences. Okay. One, long back, if you remember, I'm sure all of us must have seen Sunil Gavaskar playing cricket some point in time. Yeah. Anybody who's not seen playing Sunil Gavaskar? Nobody is young here. Okay. So all are old. He's not seen that. Okay. So there is one. Okay. Good. Okay. So there was a time when Sunil Gavaskar played cricket, and in 60 overs match, he made 36 runs. Okay. I'm only trying to tell you that there are investments in the world which will not perform. It's okay. Sometimes they will perform slow. That's fine. Okay. And you will see uncertainty. But you also find Yuvraj Singh, if you recall after that, same 36, not 60 over, but it was in 1 over. Okay. In 6 balls, which means there is uncertainty, but there are times like COVID, wherever you put the roulette table, chip on the roulette table, it just exploded 3 times, 4 times, 6 times, and everybody became fund manager. Yeah, that's also possible. I'll give you another incidence around it of same 36. Okay, India in whole match got out of 36 runs against Australia, if you recall, by any chance. I'm only trying to tell you there are times when there are investment strategies might have gone through this phase, And that's where you get challenged with volatility, uncertainty around you in your life. I'm only trying to bring this topic, so that in with that analogy of cricket, I thought it's very important that people realize that these topics may sound easiest on this earth, but the person who go through the grind and continues that grind, only that person can understand that once you come out winner, you actually realize it. And all of us are those winners of post-COVID era, if I were to say, right? No doubt about it. On that note, let me move to the panelists here. Thank you, panelists, for joining, and I'm sure over next 35 minutes or so, what I can see on the ticker here should be an interesting session. And I think we are entering into a phase of volatility. Till this time, the world was looking hunky-dory. Everything was looking very, very good. I'm sure many things. If I were to say South Korea saw martial law getting implemented, we saw UK PM losing the confidence motion, US obviously seeing biggest thing happening. And back to India, you found Haryana, which was supposed to be lost by the present government, who won it like crazy. And same is case with Maharashtra, where we are staying for sure. Okay, a lot of people wrote many things about all these things, but I think everybody has gone wrong. Okay, so let me, on that note, maybe Vijay, let me move to you first to prick your brain here. What are the areas of crisis or risk management, or maybe mitigation strategies which are important from our perspective? Your thoughts?
Yeah. So having worked into FMCG and pharma space, I would try to cover the B2C industry here.
Sure.
Yeah. So I would say the risk in the B2C industry are mainly external and internal. So external comes from the economy, which largely is driven by the GDP growth and the consumption, right? So again, in this industry, it's largely dependent on consumption, right? So that is again a derivative of your personal choices, socio and cultural status of the person, right? So I think in this industry, from an external side, macro perspective, it is very important to choose your market, product market, customer segment very carefully. And it is also even important now in the scenario when the sales channels are continuously evolving. So for example, the e-commerce and Q-commerce, right? They are evolving like anything. So this is impacting the overall supply chain as well as the customer choices. So that external threat comes from the economy and the competition. Now talking about the internal part. So you know that income levels are rising in India, right? And if I talk about the consumption growth, which has been almost 13% year on year in India, right? So I think the internal risk for any company operating into B2C space here would be that, that they can set up some unrealistic targets, right? Yeah. Because the market is so huge. So end of the day, they can say, okay, we can achieve 200% growth, 300% growth, which can actually make them vulnerable to short-term risk of default. So I think the CFO role here in terms of mitigation, I think they can play a bridge between the investors, management, and the organization to make sure that the organization is setting up the right targets, right strategy, backed by a sound financial plan. Yeah. And they can definitely use the empirical data and the current initiative. So that balance can be brought by the CFOs here. Sure. Secondly, I would say the environment or the framework in which the industry operates, especially now I'm talking about the FMCG industry, right? So the supply chain in this industry is very complex. Many of you would be knowing. So the sales channels comprises of super stockist, regional super stockist. Then you have wholesalers, retailers, right? Yeah. And indirect retailers, right? So it's actually very complex. So what happens, and this is the layer, which is responsible for actually distributing the goods to the end consumer. So if the company set up targets, which are again, they want to achieve higher growth, they can end up pushing the goods and they can actually stuff the channel with lot of goods, which are not consumed at the tertiary level or at the ground level. And this is a reality in today's B2C scenario. In fact, most of the companies are currently struggling with their EBITDA, cash flow, and even the valuation because of this. So one of the recently listed company in B2C space, they have lost their market capitalization almost by 50% in the recent 6 months, just because of this particular thing. So I think CFO, they can play a very important role here. They work with the sales team, they can work with the operation team, supply chain teams.
Correct.
To make sure that there is the right amount of inventory in the channels and the business model is sustainable. And lastly, I would say definitely, we all know that the costs are rising. Sales team cost, marketing cost, distribution, alternate channel cost. So that we all know that, keeping an eye on the your cost structure and continuously pushing for productivity initiative is a key, even to the last penny, to make your model sustainable.
Sure. So, Mr. Chelliah, if I come to you, Vijay talked about, because he belongs to an industry which are those hedged. If I see his experience of FMCG and pharma, if I go to you, you are part of core industry, which is like steel, for example. Maybe effective risk management is the foundation of effective crisis management. So do you have a different thought process than what the hedge person says? The hedge industry person says, okay, let me
Not necessarily. No. For me, when I look at our industry, it's, basically it's linked more to the commodity price movements. But of course, we are in a value-added space. So we believe, and our customers are B2C and B2B customers. We have both. Okay, so these are coils that we produce for sheeting and walling purposes. Okay, so when I look at risk management, we lay a lot, we put a lot of emphasis on risk management, because that is when you ideate, you understand what are the risks in various parts of the business, and then it's what you're going to mitigate those risks. Okay, so you have plans for mitigating, you bring down the risk levels. But whatever you do, finally there could be something which can go wrong. Okay, and that's why people say, where risk management ends, the crisis management starts. Or where crisis management starts, risk management ends. You've done all the planning, everything, but once crisis hits you, that's how you're going to react to that. So essentially, again, when you look at crisis management, it is not about, at that moment what you're going to do. It is about at that moment what you're going to do, but it's about planning for it. Right? Crisis just doesn't come and hit us hard, straight away. Like in the industry, if we look at steel industry, we need to keep scanning the industry in terms of how the prices are going, how the demand-supply gap is going, how the imports and exports are going. Basis which I need to know, okay, there is a possibility of the, prices coming down. So in that context, should I buy more? Should I buy less? Should I have inventory? Should I not have inventory? Should I, reduce my debtors? We should be scanning that, whole thing, which is the environment which is happening. And second step is we need to prepare for it and have some protective mechanisms and reduce those things. But when they say the shit hits the roof, that's when, you need to do the damage control. So for which, as a strategy, as a process, as a philosophy, you need to have already prepared for it. And what does that preparation means? You need to understand these things and put in policies, clear procedures, training to people, and people having, the right aptitude and, the way they can react to a crisis. So we need to identify those people, and we need to have it all, prepared. We need to be prepared. Once we are prepared, when a crisis hits, the damage control will happen. And then what? It's about the recovery. And that's why we talk about the turnaround. And then, of course, after all this is done, you go reflect and see what better I can do for the future. So if I look at my industry, like, for us, I'm not talking about finance here. It's more about heavy industry, right? These are huge coils which are 5 ton, 10 ton, big. For us, safety is very critical. When a person is handling that, if it just falls on his leg is gone. If it falls on the body, the person is gone, Fatality, it's highly fatal, People can die. So for us, safety is all important. So we have a lot of risk management around safety. We have process, and it's just not we cannot compromise on it. We spend, we invest, we train, we do all of it. But still, like cranes are lifting the coils, the crane has to be kept in order. Because if something goes wrong, if it falls, it can fall on somebody. When you are stacking it, it can roll over somebody. When you're opening the coil, it can hit, it can recoil and hit the people. So we do all of that. But still, when something goes wrong, we need to be ready. So as a crisis management, we already think about, okay, if something happens, what is the first thing to be done? First aid to be done. Somebody has to be told, first aid has to be done, hospital has to be informed, and then what is people internal and external? Regulatory bodies have to be informed, internally people have to be informed, and who's going to do that? Which team is going to act upon it? The ambulances has to come, people have to be rushed there, and then the second thing is who's going to bear the cost. So we have all the policies, procedures written down. So when the crisis hits, more or less we are clear, what needs to be done. Okay, so for me, risk management ends, crisis management starts. We have the right people for it to react. Who's to communicate is also very clear. Not any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go and communicate because media will be there. There'll be government officials, internal people, and we need to communicate the right thing in the right perspective so that the company is protected, people are protected, the environment is protected. So it's a whole lot of things. So crisis management is about preparation. It's just not about saying that at that point I will do it. So it's just an example, which I thought for our industry.
I think communication holds the key there. There's no doubt about it, for sure. I will only say that I have two gentlemen in this panel, whose name is Ajay. Ajay means victorious, right? I think that's what the meaning of Ajay is, right? So, Ajay, Mahajan, for example, AM, maybe I'll move to you. They say analysis leads to paralysis. Okay, they generally say that, and that's what Mr. Chelliah is also talking about. You can't panic in that situation. There is no doubt about it. Which means that building trust is what holds in a situation of crisis management. And if you do too much of analysis, it will lead to definite paralysis. So what's your thought on that? How do you build that trust in that scenario like this?
Thank you. So whenever you are talking about a trust,
You can take it closer. Yep, thanks.
Trust for any organization, you need to have a good team. I'm sitting here on a podium. My team is stable. She is very strong. Some of my key members are sitting here. Without their support, I will not be able to tackle any risk as well as crisis. He mentioned about the risk. When the risk fails, the crisis happens.
Yeah.
So we need to develop that confidence amongst the internal stakeholders as well as the external stakeholders. Your external stakeholders will include your bankers, your shareholders. As a CFO, we need to give them that confidence that we are on right track. For internal team, the only way to give them confidence is good communication. If you have a transparent and a clean communication with your team, it helps. It helps a lot. I'll just give you one example. We have bi-monthly board meetings. After every board meeting, me, my CEO, and other directors, they are in the board meeting. Board में क्या हुआ? It's always a big debate question. So बाहर आने के बाद इसकी body language कैसी है उससे पता चलता है कितना मार खाया. So after that we started a session with all the HODs. We started updating them what happened in the board meeting. And that gives a confidence to the team, internal team. And that gives us a confidence that even if any of my perceived risk fails and results in a crisis, we have a good team who will help us to overcome that crisis.
Sure. No, completely agree with you on that. So when you come from a different background, from the auto side maybe, and I'm sure you must have seen and you have risen up to the CEO level now, So your way of leveraging maybe technology, maybe crisis management or risk management has changed, or that continues in the same manner? Is there anything worth sharing here?
See, currently industry is going in a very dynamic way.
Yeah.
So crisis at any point of it can come because India is now exposed to the global. It's no more a developing country. It is almost all in the verge of reaching a stage that you are a developed country. Everyone is looking at you, outside world, and would like to invest in inside this one. But still, our interest rates are very, very high, so they can take upon. So they can get a lot of money out of it. So technology definitely play a vital role in the managing the crisis, you can call it as, and risk. Earlier, risk management in the sense you have to make a mitigation plan and see how it is really going to work upon.
That's right.
But every situation, every industry, the mitigation will be different. And every industry undergoes challenges are also different. As such, you are exposed to too much global. So some of the industries having industries outside MNCs, like if I say Gestamp is existence everywhere. So their managing risk is different in a different countries. Because it comes from the way you pursue the risk, the way the cultural, in the sense, the people matters actually, because how we see risk, whether we would like to perceive that in advance, or otherwise we would like to see how really it is going to behave. So definitely, I appreciate Suresh, what he said is that the link between the risk and crisis. Yeah. So that's a wonderful explanation, sir, actually. So that way, if you see, technology definitely play a role. You rightly asked that risk can be mitigated to the technology. In the sense, no, you started with something like, you asked him something like analysis and paralysis.
Yeah.
But the thing is, unless you have a data, you will never be able to do anything.
Absolutely.
Actually, rather these conferences and other things, what we are happening in, how to actually manage the data to come out a situation where you can get a proper statistical analysis and how actually you are going to use the technology in a way where everything can be addressed. Yeah. So technology is actually playing a vital role because not everybody is sitting in one room and discussing the things today. People are network basis at different places. They are experiencing different companies, experiencing different type of data. So ultimately, which type of risk I need to address if we are able to understand that. But that, by just only writing on the paper, it doesn't work. You need a technology, and different technology tools are available. It's not like only ERP is really going to help you. No, it's not like that. There are several tools are there, and customization of that really matters. And definitely, once you understand the risk, then you can have a milestones of how really you are going to manage the crisis. And crisis can be, once again, because we do the crisis in the sense, whether it is a optimal level crisis, whether it is a crisis is really going to make you in a very different way that you are not able to manage that. Or otherwise, initial phases crisis, if you will be able to manage, that we rightly said, you need to prepare your team to ready for the crisis, and different types of teams are required to manage the crisis.
Yeah.
So that way, rightly said, it is the technology will play a vital role these days. Without that, you will not be able to do anything because data management is out of proposition. So much data you are sitting with is. So technology is the only one answer for you to manage this risk.
Fair. No, absolutely agree with you because the way data at a speed which is moving, I think a lot of pops up. A lot of pop-up can actually help you. So Venu used the word called capital. Okay. Let me come to you, Ajay, on that note that managing the cost of funds in a situation like uncertain environment, when you still see interest rate continue to be high, capital structure remains, but as a CFO, your responsibility is you continue to be profitable, sustainable, still growing, and still managing everything. In this scenario, are you seeing anything different? And like when you correctly mentioned, you're part of multiple countries. So for you, challenges very different, including dollar, I guess.
Yeah, but before I go there, let me see very good technique. keeping CFOs under pressure. Timeline ticking. Huh? Good
This is
one.
a business guy.
Very good. Yeah, so coming back to the cost of funds and cost of capital, and I think, thank you for asking this question to me because very relevant question nowadays. And I will not take much of a time because all of us, we know how important it is. But I'll also place some of the examples, recent past, maybe not 2 or 1 month back. But before I go there, I'll say to have a efficient cost of a fund mix and lower cost of capital, we need to first identify the source of capital, the options what we have on the table, whether we go ECB or we go domestic. There are many bank representatives are sitting here. Second would be, how can I mitigate the risk of interest fluctuations? Like we know, Trump coming in against giving many statements against BRICS, mainland China.
Yeah.
Now the Federal Reserve has projected to cut the interest rate by 25 basis points. India, especially Crises, again they have slowed down the growth projection to 6.8%. Probably this is the right time to invest in business wherever we are. That's the second point. And to substantiate this, probably I will take this example of Gift City, IFSC, right? IFSC, if we know that it's International Financial Service Center being floated by Government of India here. And the earlier problem that many of the multinationals, they used to have bringing fund to India, but when they wanted to take it back, repatriation of funds, lots of taxations.
Yeah.
And that was the pain point for most of them. Now, this Gift City will facilitate them to bring the money inside India, and at the same time, they can take out the dividend without paying any tax. Of course, there will be certain rules and regulations would be imposed on that. Other than this, I see credit rating, of course, if we have a right set of credit rating, AA plus, banks are, no, they are going to be on red carpet. Equity and debt mix, I would say, like most of the cash-rich company, they don't want to go for debt. That's one of the area that all of us can work because the cost of equity normally is in the range of 11-12%. And term loan rate is in the range of 9.5%. So the existing weighted average cost of capital of an organization, which is around 11-12%, we can easily bring down it to 10%.
Sure.
Now these are all the challenges when we talk about a CFO. It's वो बोलते हैं एक आग का दरिया है और डूब के जाना है. It's not a thing that we go to office and start working on this because there are n number of things going behind this. So without taking much time, I would say still it would be one of the topmost KPIs for any of the CFOs in India at least. When Mr. Modi is targeting to be third largest economy, 2047, and I think we all have got our role to play.
Sure. So, Santosh, let me move to you on this. Aag ka dariya to hai. He's told me that for sure, and everybody still want to grow in that aag ka dariya. There is no doubt about it. But there is another aag ka dariya which other Ajay talked about. When you get out of the board meeting, you see the faces of people and you can realize what has happened. So, in my view, CFO also plays a role of a sounding board to the CEO. Okay. Now, in that journey, how the aag ka dariya can be really diffused and still can grow there? How does CFO can play that role?
Fantastic question, right? So I think the first thing to remember is that a CFO is also a business leader, right? He dons the hat of finance, regulatory, often legal, but in the end, the purpose is to drive and run a profitable business, correct? So that is a given. Now, if that is the foundation, that means already there is an alignment between what the CEO would want typically and what, as a business leader who is also responsible for finance, you are going to do.
Yeah.
Second point I would like to make is, like all business professionals, we all love frameworks. So there is a framework for this as well. Right? So if you have a matrix where you have on the vertical side strategic and tactical, and then on the horizontal side you have stakeholders, you have market factors, and then you have organizational factors,
Yeah.
right? So typically most of the interactions with the CEO will fall in one of these buckets, right?
Yeah.
So it could be regulatory, it could be, in stakeholders it could be regulatory, it could be the board, right? And it could be any other, government or other agency, and it could be operational or tactical, right? So if you think in those terms, uh, then there are areas where sometimes a firm stand may be needed, but in most times, I think the first question is, how can we make this work?
Yeah.
Now, if we go with the idea that how can we make this work, it solves a lot of problems, right? In the end, you may go with what was said on the table for a discussion point. You may go with either view or a middle view. But the basic framework has to be how can you make this work? And what are then the alternatives to doing it or not doing it? So that this matrix sort of is a guideline, and the willingness to do something to move forward, right, as opposing to say, no, we can't do it. Right? That I think is the key if you want to be a sounding board. The third is, again, what paralysis by analysis, right? So we have n number of data points.
That's
Most of them don't make sense, because what we are going to be discussing is something that has not happened, right?
Yeah.
So we are going to run our campaign, we are going to run a scheme, we are going to do an acquisition, right? We are going to raise capital for things that have not happened. So in
Sure.
those scenarios, when you are discussing with your CEO, you then need to be flexible enough to understand what are the risks and what are the guardrails, right? And then agree on the degree of risk and say, okay, I am making this leap of faith, you are sort of going down this path and sort of agreeing to some of my points. And the very act of fleshing it out, right? Let's make this work, but what about these 2-3 points, right? So if we go down that path, I think this will be forming the sort of trust-based relationship for any two leaders, and especially the CFO and CEO, because a CFO wears multiple hats: business hat, finance hat, regulatory hat. And I think the framework and the how can I make this work is the underlying factor of being a sounding board, because then you have a seat at the table, right?
Understand, yeah.
Right.
That's
Obviously you can't, and obviously you should have some judgment on what you say in public and what you say in private to the CEO, right? You can't do everything in public and you can't do everything in outside.
Correct.
But if you have that common sense, and most people I think would have that, it would be a very beneficial and profitable relationship. Right?
Understand.
So,
Vijay, we were just asking about crisis management, etc. As per you, maybe name maybe a couple of things. This is one and this is two area of focus.
Yeah, so as Venu mentioned, we are living in a VUCA world, right? So crisis is expected, and that is the way of life now. We have seen COVID, we have seen Ukraine, right? So I think as CFO, we all need to be prepared for the upcoming crisis, which can come from anywhere. We don't know. So some of the areas which I would say, these are very basic, but I think we can apply in our day-to-day lives. The most important thing during crisis is cash preservation, right? So I think as CFO, what we can do, we can implement a culture, and I personally say it, care for cash. So nowadays, if you look, not only EBITDA or margin, even the free cash flow has become very important, not only from an investor point of view, but from a survival point of view, right? So I think what we can do, we can deep dive into balance sheet, and we can see, how we can unlock the cash reserves. I'm sure if you go there, have a look, you can go for working capital optimization, you can go for supplier or customer payment negotiation, supply chain financing. So nowadays, many NBFCs, they are coming up with innovative solutions, right? So I'm sure one of these solutions would suit your company as well. So that can be done.
Sure.
There are some hidden aspects also. For example, if you have given a fixed deposit to for certain performance bank guarantee, it is lying in your balance sheet. If you are a company operating into multiple states, I'm sure there would be some GSTIN where you have unused ITC, that can be also used strategically to reduce your GST liability. So these are some of the areas, how to make the cash work for you. Secondly, I would say to invest into data automation, predictive analysis. So what happened during crisis? You need to have real-time and data-driven decision because you need to preserve your most important revenue streams. So this is not the time to actually experiment and splurge your resources on some new initiative or something like that.
Yeah.
So this is the time where you can actually deploy your resources towards your main revenue streams, and at the same time optimize the alternate sales and delivery channels to optimize the EBITDA. And definitely to invest into finance function, right? To upgrade them as a business partner and not just the traditional accountant or the tax experts, right? I think FP&A function, they closely work with business, right? So they can play a very important role here for the real-time forecast, and they can actually work with the cross-functional department to bring efficiencies. And lastly, I would say, as Ajay was mentioning, to maintain a clear and transparent communication. As CFO, we have a 360-degree view, right? So we know the organization in and out. So I think we can play a pivotal role here to orchestrate the change, to send the communication in a very pragmatic manner. Also work with the other departmental heads, to ensure that we are responding to the market requirement in an agile manner. So
Sure.
I would say this is an opportunity crisis, for the CFO to go back to the drawing board, challenge some assumptions, right, key assumptions, and bring the transformation.
Sure. Mr. Chelliah, you talked about risk management leads to the crisis management, but I'll come to another one which you used earlier, is a turnaround. Finally, end of the day, you want business to sort of take a flip, turn around. What is that one thing or two things which you feel is a mandatory thing in that turnaround?
So basically, business is about telling a story, right? It's right, wrong. It doesn't matter how the story is told, how you deliver it, and how you deliver on it, right? So for a turnaround, first thing is the basic fundamentals you need to be clear about. And if you have come up with a clear idea of how this turnaround is going to happen, I tell you, and if you're able to articulate that as a story, which most of the CEOs are, and that's their job. And as a finance guy, if you're able to substantiate it and show it to him so that he's able to tell the story and you're able to convince within your teams also that this is a plausible story, I think the turnaround will happen. Then, because the second step is around following that fundamental story, being consistent about it, and there will be ups and downs, but still sticking on to your story because it has been done in a logical way with the fundamentals around, with the dependencies and everything put together, right? So it's about, turnaround is about, how you tell the story, keep the story going, keep people, communicate enough, the right communication with consistent communication across the board. If you keep doing it and you stick to it and make the necessary changes as you go along, the turnaround will happen.
Sure. Ajay, I will move to you on a very different perspective now. We talked about risk management, crisis management, etc. For me, one of the things is diversity and inclusion, which also becomes an important part and plays the pivotal part. And we hear this in MNCs. I'm sure you work in MNC as well. How do they think potential risks and the results around it? Because especially these young population, and especially when I come to Pune, I find every organization has like 4,000, 10,000 people, and they all, average age is maybe 26 years, for example. That's a very different space. They've not seen any crisis or risk in life.
Yeah, I think all of us must be facing the same scenario right now.
Yeah.
Because in India, 30 crore out of 140 crore of population is Gen Zs, where the age is 22, 23 or less than that.
Yeah.
So definitely we cannot ignore them. And obviously this is not a finance question, but since I am also responsible to build the culture of my organization, probably we have this inherited from Madrid, our corporate office, but every country is different. China is having different culture and we are having different culture. And probably by 2030, the Gen Z's population is going to be around 35-36%. So having said that, one thing is very clear that we cannot ignore them. We have to bring them in the main course items and take the best out of them. For example, I'll just give a scenario. I mean, what happened day before yesterday. So we had called students from IIM Mumbai. And because we wanted to place them in various areas on soft floor, and we are a very hardcore manufacturing company. When I say hardcore, it's really hardcore. But we also use sophisticated equipments like robots, and they are very sophisticated. Now, believe me, out of 11, 8 were in Gen Z's categories. And I was literally thinking the way they were talking in the interview room. It literally means that they are different, they behave differently, they talk differently, they use some code language, which probably most of us will not understand. But at the end of the day, they also add values to the organization and add to the lot that we want to carry. DI, in between there is a letter E. So it's diversity, equity and inclusion. Diversity is what? What means what kind of diverse scenarios, culture we have in our organization. And I means whether we feel them, whether we see them inside the organization. And that is why DEI, E is equality, but D and I is really important nowadays, keeping in mind this Gen Z's population. And I'm sure Venu, he has grown from CFO to CEO. And even my Asia Pac CEO is also ex-CFO of Asia. So the cultural shift, which I found day before yesterday's meeting and interview, a lot of them, they wanted to come back to the fourth stage, main stage, and add value, even though they did not have any kind of prior work experience. The whole world is changing and probably we need to accept that. D, E, and I.
Sure. No, so honestly, in that same line, I took interviews of some 6 IIM Ahmedabad, entrant, and they just passed. And they enter into, I was supposed to, through our asset foundation, we have a CSR foundation, where I was supposed to finalize 3 and we were funding it. So when I met 6 of them, it was difficult to so they were very intelligent kids, no doubt about it. And their knowledge was absolutely right on top. Very difficult, but they bring a very different perspective. No,
probably, I clearly see after 10 years, this sir and boss, all these will go away because these guys are not going to accept that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to change.
I hope my son continues to tell me, Papa, that's fine with me. That's the most important part. Because when I see my sister's son in Singapore, he talks by the name, So I wonder that.
By the way, my son called me bro.
Yeah. So, bro is still a decent language. Still fine, acceptable. Ajay, if I were to move to you, Ajay Mahajan, if I were to ask you, when I come to these events, etc., when I see a lot of software tools, technology applications, management accounting, you find so many things of analytical tools. I'm sure AI has become the new buzzword. In that management, in that uncertain world, VUCA world, what you call it as, or how do you manage that? I'm sure you've been part of multiple companies now. Maybe a quick answer because we are running short of time now. Yeah.
Yes. There is a saying, I don't know how many of you have heard it, never marry a CFO.
I thought never marry a doctor was the only saying. Okay.
It's a new version. Because CFO is equally involved in the organization, is equally involved in all the activities of the organization. So, technology will only save his time, it will improve his decision-making capacity. And it will help him to become Chief Future Officer instead of Chief Failure Officer. If the risk gets converted into crisis, you are from CFO, you will be Chief Failure Officer. Because the nature of the organization, at least in manufacturing organization, any work rather, which has no direct connectivity with the operation comes to finance. जिसका कोई नहीं होता है उसका finance होता है. And then once you start developing system for it, once you put it in the proper path, then the other owners will come, there will be the claimants, and there will be a thing that with the help of your technology, your processes, you are encroaching our area. So those are all practical aspects.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Understand that for sure, indeed, yeah. No, so completely. I mean, my question, Venu, to you is on these lines. And a lot of people talk about technology and all that. I made in my presentation in the morning, technology brings risk as well, big risk it brings. Do you believe that AI, tools, etc., can give you exact solutions of forecasting, planning, and all that? Or do you still see lacuna there? Because that can jeopardize whatever thoughts you might have of growth.
So you are asking a huge fan of AI.
Yeah?
So I took over as a CEO past 6 months.
Sure.
So my work, whatever I do, I write a blog of 10 pages in 10 minutes. That blog will completely get corrected the way I want it to be through AI, generative AI, you can call it as meta AI. In a descriptive way, the way I want it to be. I can convert that into 1 page, I can convert 10 more pages, I can elaborate,
Yeah.
I can connect with any other thing, I can put quotes and other things. So this is from the perspective of how you actually wanted to use AI to approach people. Technology side, huge. Still people are not even aware that what sort of thing it can give you. In other way around, if you see, my son is AI specialist, but he says it is a kid. The way you want it to be, you just play with that kid and you can get the things done from. So, if I come to the AI area, you should know how to utilize it. It's not that you don't ask AI something, let it explain. No. It is your thinking, your thought process which is there, let it get changed from that.
Sure.
And you go on adding your thought process. That's what.
Understand.
So data side and other things now huge means huge. I'm a huge fan of AI and in future it's really going to change the complete situation. Though people may have different varied thinking, but ultimately now whoever wanted to make comments, big people, they are making comments at the same time, background they themselves are using. So it's going to be quite disruptive. So all we have to be ready with that. Try to best use of technology and ultimately the thought process and thinking pattern is going to come to you. Again, AI is not the one which is getting generated somewhere. It is again, we ourselves are doing it.
Understand.
So how effectively you are going to utilize? So
Understand.
definitely I am pro.
So pro AI. Okay, sure. Understand that. The time is up, but let me ask a quick question to all of you. Okay, I'll not give you maybe more than 6 seconds to you. Okay, to answer each question. Okay, what's your view on USD? 6 months down the line, where do you see USD? INR.
It's going to be in the same range, maybe plus 2 or 3.
Okay, sir. 85, 86. Vijay?
I think within 85.
85.
5 to 7% down.
5 to 7% down in 6 months? Wow. Ajay?
I would expect it to be constant, more or less constant,
Okay.
1 or 2%.
Venu?
I go with Ajay and Suresh.
Okay.
Same.
Okay. Second question to you. Tomorrow is a rate cut policy, RBI policy. You expect a rate cut? Yes or no? No. No. Anybody for yes?
I am in yes,
I mean,
because
yes.
government wants to invest. Let people invest more. 2047, third largest economy, it's not going to be that easy. China is after us. So I'm in yes. Because this will also be driven by Fed Reserve, 25 basis points cut from that side. So
Yeah.
India also has to take counter action.
Okay, so let me start. Last question to you before they throw me out of the podium, for sure. One risk in one word is the biggest risk today for you.
Supply chain.
Supply chain, Mr. Chelliah. One risk, Vijay.
Execution.
Execution risk. Yeah. Regulatory. Okay. Ajay?
Manpower, retention.
Manpower. Okay.
We needed change agents.
Okay. So that's skilling, basically, you're saying. Okay. I think it looks to be pretty interesting views of theirs, no doubt about it, because in an VUCA world, you find different thought process here. They're not uniform. Let me warn you. Okay. And this would have been different in 9 months back. I can also tell you that. Okay. This is what the uncertain world changes your thought process, and your graph starts to move differently. Yeah. So, thank you so much for all of you for a discussion. I hope all of you liked it. Thank you, panelists, for candid and open views on this. Thank you so much, everyone.
Do we have any questions
Any questions for anyone?
from the audience?
Please, sorry.
So we are eager to answer questions. So we have
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's getting recorded, no, so nobody want to talk about it. Next question.
Exactly.
Let me answer that to you. Okay. I've answered. Okay.
Any more questions?
Any normal questions? Okay. Okay. Please go ahead, sir. Can somebody give him the mic, please?
So generally, if you look at B2C area, okay, there are various products that would be coming in, right? And especially, let me take an example of products which are seasonal, and maybe within that a very good example. Maybe recently we'll talk about air purifiers. Okay, it's a very seasonal product. So in such kind of businesses which are more of channel distributor driven, what kind of risks you see, and then maybe in that cases, how does as a CFO someone need to be careful about when you manage such kind of seasonal businesses?
This answer was for Vijay. Yeah? B2C.
So if I got your question right about the risk in the channels, right?
Risk in the channels, absolutely, because that's where it's a seasonal product, right? And then you have a lot of risk around that.
Yeah, I would say, nowadays many companies are entering into this segment, and the strategy, because this supply chain is very complex, right? So at the time of entry, you need to decide your segment very carefully and the distribution strategy. So one example which I can quote is okay, one day you say, I want to distribute through super stockists and retailers and wholesalers. Okay, after that, 6 months down the line, you would say, no, I am incurring expenses on super stockists. I am incurring expenses on distributors. They are asking for sales promotion expense. Okay, I will go direct. Okay, so they will change it to D2C model, right? So that will change the whole thing. So I think having a firm commitment on your business model, defining your segment very carefully is important, right? And that you need to follow for a longer period. If you keep on changing your strategies, this is not going to help you.
Got it. Thanks. Thank you.
Just to add to Vijay's point,
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
here the technological support, if you have proper AI tools, that will help you to boost your things.
Yeah.
If you have a
good point.
proper app defined for your distributors, dealers, sitting in your head office, you can understand which dealer is having how much stock, how much is the risk, what is the age, what's the commission he's earning. So that will help you. The proper investment in technology will help you.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense.
I actually wonder the technology will start giving IPL auction number also. 25 crore will become 250 crore in some time, for sure. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I think time is up and we are over short time. Thank you so much, everyone. Yep.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patni, for the wonderful
Stay,
moderation.
sir. Just
I
stay.
would request all the panelists to be on the stage for the felicitation. I would like Mr. Patni to felicitate and do the honors.